This is a test. This is a test. Test. This is another test. This is another test. New mic check, 1, 2. Hello. Testing. Not loud enough. Everybody okay at the back? Can you hear me okay? Yep. Oh, hello, welcome. We'll sit down. Drinks at the back. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us here in the last Power BI Data Analytics group of the year. We started off really well this year. First 5-6 months we had monthly events in place. The summer hit and then went on a little break, and then never recovered from that break really. Hence not having many sort of events over the past few months, but I'm hoping again to start again next year again, get going again. This time maybe go more than 6 months this time, but hopefully we'll have some more Power BI talks, locations, dinners, events, all those sorts of good things. So welcome here. So thank you all for braving the cold. First of all, I know rain, trains, life, everything sort of gets in the way. But we've got an incredible lineup here tonight, an even better community with you guys in the room as well. If you don't know me, I'm Sheb. I'm your host, organizer, and occasional Power BI therapist as well. And tonight is all about learning, connecting, and discovering new ideas, and celebrating everything this sort of group has become as well. Okay, so just a quick overview on the agenda for tonight. So we'll start with Maryleen coming up in about 5 minutes. We'll have a quick break, and then Simon coming on at around 7:10. A bit of food and networking until around sort of 8:30, 8:45, and then out on the town after that if you are up for it. So before we go any further, massive thanks to our sponsor tonight, Hopton Analytics. Without support from companies like Hopton, we wouldn't have these events, we wouldn't have this space, the food, or honestly, the ability to keep this sort of community going as well. So a big applause, thank you for Hopton for providing. Just a quick thing about us. So we're the Leeds Power BI Data Analytics User Group, been running since around sort of year 2020. We now have over 1,000 members, growing every month, so proud to bring sort of data professionals, analysts, developers, students, and other curious humans around the north together in events like this. Try and stream on YouTube regularly as well, so today we're live streaming on there as well. Collaborate with local businesses such as Hopton and other businesses as well, and committed to making Leeds one of the sort of strongest data communities in the north of the UK. If you're new, welcome to the family. So a quick intro for our speaker, Maryleen Amaizu. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. Apologies for that. She's an Azure data platform consultant delivering excellent work across cloud architecture, engineering, and modern data solutions. Tonight she's taking us into the world of building solid data foundations with GenAI, something I'm quite excited about as well. Including a live demo with AWS hosted GenAI models, Python RAG logic, and a practical look at how real AI sort of workloads operate behind the scenes. So please give a massive welcome to Maryleen. Sorry, that's supposed to come out. After the break, we have Simon Devine, Director at Hopton Analytics. Simon is going to show us how small UX choices can completely transform your Power BI reports. His talk, Design That Works, takes real dashboards and gives them a good UX-focused makeover. If you want to communicate clearly, influence decisions, and level up the readability of your work, this one is an essential session for you. Huge thanks to Simon again and Hopton for sponsoring tonight's event. Something I found online when I was just looking around today is that Fabric or Microsoft are offering quite a few exam reductions. So there's, if you search for Fabric days exam discount, there's like 100% off certain exams, and there's 50% discount for the PL 300 Power BI exam, and a couple of other data analyst exams. You can get 50 to 100% off of those as well. The link's down here, but if you, like I said, if you search for Fabric days exam discount, that link should come up, and you've got quite a lot of things going on at the moment, and that's due to start over the next month. Some of the prerequisites are quite simple. You just have to join the community, take a quick sort of sample testing, and then aim to take the test before the end of the year, before the 31st of December. And if you book it before then you're eligible for these discounts. 100% is based on Fabric ones, and 50% based on data analyst and Power BI ones as well. Okay. So next year, again, as mentioned, so I'm going to hopefully So I've got the old slide up here. So next event, hopefully in January. We've got a speaker lined up for that already. So hopefully towards the end of January we'll have a new set of speakers, new sort of location, ready to go for a new sort of run of events in 2026. So please give a warm welcome to our first speaker, Mr. Amaizu.
Okay, I think we are ready. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Shep, for the invitation. And this is my first time joining the user group, and I'm really loving it because I and my husband, we recently moved to this area, and we were like, London. London has a lot of meetups. We attend events from time to time in London, and we're bringing that here, and that's lovely to see the community really waxing strong in data and AI. So today we're going to be talking about building solid data foundations for GenAI. Before we get started, how many of us are using some form of GenAI in our workplace? Some productivity tool or using GenAI? Okay, good. And how many of us have got a deployed, you have a GenAI application or solution that is built internally by your organization? How many? Be built by your organization. Okay, right, one or two persons over there. Good. So we're going to be looking at how do we build solid data foundations for GenAI, because this is a data group, analytics group. Or when I started really exploring generative AI, the world has really advanced in GenAI. Everybody's using it, but I got to understand that there's still several challenges we face with GenAI, and my experience as well building GenAI tools also allows me to see that data foundations is very important. So that's what we're going to be diving into. A little about me. So I'm a machine learning engineer at Redgate, and my day-to-day job is around building. I use, of course, because it's machine learning, I basically code in Python, but the tools we build are for data privacy. So we have organizations who have databases and they want to put that let's say, share it with, I don't know if you're familiar with test data management, or you have organizations, they have data in production, and they need to share that data for testing, for experimentation, or whatever use cases. And usually the challenge they have is how they could really move that data from production environment to test environment. And that challenge also comes from PII. You have personally identifiable information, sensitive data, and come on, data is still competitive advantage. So there is that concern around compliance as well, because they don't want to just get their data out there to some other teams, maybe developers, testers, or external teams. So that's the bottleneck, and that's the problem that we get to solve. So we have a solution that we recently went into general availability. So that is AI custom data sets, where we build synthetic data sets for this sort of organization. So they could use that synthetic data and use that for different applications. And yeah, I also have, well, grateful I got this award recently, Every Woman AI Champion 2005, and that's coming from the work that I've been doing around this space. I'm also very passionate about talent development, so I do some training. I've been doing training for so many years now, but yeah, upskilling training, especially for people who are transitioning from like any field at all into AI. So these days we talk about AI literacy, we still talk about data literacy. So that's something I'm passionate about, even to the grassroots, right? Because I'm a firm believer that even kids need to understand really how AI works under the hood. And my husband teaches math, and sometimes he drags me to solve the math with him because it just helps me refresh on my secondary school math and all. But yeah, we do find that many persons don't know that under the hood, AI is really math. It's the algorithms that are working, and we forget that often. And we hear things like children committing suicide because they felt so attached to AI tools that it even replaces their family members, right? So we're seeing that happening a lot, and I'm really passionate about getting to that grassroots of this is how AI really works under the hood. So what we're seeing today is a fundamental shift in how we build AI, right? So the traditional machine learning workflow is that you have some requirements. There is a data workflow where you collect data, clean that data. Some of us are involved in data cleaning or labeling. Maybe if you are in Power BI, I know a little bit about Power BI. I'm not an expert in Power BI, but there is that element of data transformation, right, that you have to do. Then data labeling, feature engineering. So that used to be the bulk of the work in machine learning, the data workflow, because we then there's a saying that it's garbage in, garbage out. So the quality of your data is going to determine the quality of your model. So organizations have that control over their data. So they have to do all the data collection, all the data cleaning, really painful process, cleaning data. In fact, they would say it takes about 80% of, well, a data scientist's time. But then you move on to the model workflow, where you then think about the model design, training. Again, that could consume some time, because a typical data scientist will spend their time testing different models, trying different models to see what really works, and before it gets into deployment. So that's where the ML workflow comes in, where you've deployed the model, you constantly monitor and have some control over how it works. And this is all a life cycle. Like whatever AI product is a product. So the way you manage an asset, physical asset, you also have to manage this as an asset. But now shifting to the modern workflow today, what is AI? And that's where roles, traditional roles like the traditional machine learning engineering, is more shifting more towards AI engineering, LLM engineering. But there is still something common, right? Of course, we have to understand our use cases. That's also where some organizations struggle, because we've seen a lot of organizations saying, oh, yeah, it's the GenAI hype. I'm going to deploy my own GenAI. I was asking us earlier, how many of us have internal maybe GenAI tools, but many organizations like a GenAI craze, and everyone wants to be part of, like, take a part of that cake, right? But if you don't understand the use cases, a lot of these projects just end up in pilots, just let's experiment, and they don't come into full-scale production. But again, what we see is that there's still a need for the data workflow. And that's what we're going to be focusing on, the data workflow. But now you could see, if you compare the data workflow for traditional AI and the modern one, you could see they are quite different, right? So there's the part of, first of all, you have to assess what data do I have. Then you have to do some pre-processing as well and generate some embedding. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Then build up your knowledge base. That knowledge base is still important. So what that means is that, yes, there's a shift, but there is still a need to have a firm understanding of your data and still have the data assets and still use that within your AI workflow. Model is a bit different as well, because whereas previously you own the model, you own all the process in building that model, today it's more of plug and play, right? The models are hosted somewhere, the foundation models that we have, and it's more of a plug and play. But again, there's still some things to do around modeling, and it's a phase, right? So LLM ops has come up because you have to think of deploying. So we recently, my organization, went through that phase of, yes, this is LLM. We want to build this application to help users generate synthetic data. But I tell you, from the time we conceptualized that and did all use case scoping and all to the time we deployed, and we're still learning from it, there were so many things in between that I came to understand that, yeah, it's not just the plug and play, but you have to consider so many factors as well to get it working. So we say that from Gartner, generative AI is the #1 type of AI solution deployed in organizations. So anyone hearing AI today, we also have another solution that is not GenAI, but the fact that you hear AI, it's everyone goes to, oh, come on, it's some GenAI, come on, it's some large language model out there. So that's why we say it's the #1. And it comes with new challenges as well. So I asked GPT to help me generate these images, and you can see that it made a mess. Sometimes it doesn't understand text. So that's one of the challenges. You can see there. So you have hallucinations. It hallucinates, it makes things up. It can be really annoying because I use Copilot, and it could be very, very annoying. Sometimes I'm like, have you heard of vibe coding? Vibe coding. Right, that's like they said it's like the most popular word of 2025, isn't it? But sometimes it feels like zombie coding, because you really don't know what's going on. It's like GenAI is taking you on this ride, this co-pilot, and you're just going. Sometimes I want to take a step back. Like, what exactly am I doing? Let's just come back to the basics, right? So then robustness as well, ensuring that these models are reliable. Sometimes their performance are unpredictable. Security risks, they come with security risks. In fact, I was having some discussion around AI safety, and there is this new trend where, because we know that a time would come when the new LLMs are going to be trained on new sets of data or fine-tuned. So question is, what kind of data will be available for them? And that's why some bad actors are injecting very, very bad data into the internet, knowing that to train these models, we have to crawl the internet. So they are injecting really bad data. And that is going to be a big problem, because we have to think about what data, the next set of LLMs. This is a concern to everyone, because even if you're not training the model in-house, you're going to be using one way or the other, right? Or you'll be using an application that calls these models. So it's going to be a global concern. Already it's happening. Then you have the cost. Do you have control over the cost? What happens when, how do you control that cost factor? Because you don't have the model in-house, and you're relying on third-party APIs as well. So for us to really build that solid data foundation, there are so many aspects to it, but I'm going to focus more on the data preparation, right? But yes, you have to think about the data strategy, have a clear vision for how AI is going to empower, or the data would empower your AI initiatives. You have to think about how you prepare that data. And yet, data preparation is still important, even with GenAI. You have to think about data governance, so the quality, security, compliance, so you can build trust. I tell you, trust is one really big component, and one of the hurdles we face even in industry is that, let's say, if you've been on that side where you're trying to build something, an application, you're thinking about how you communicate that to the users. Transparency is important. You have to, and that's something that even anyone calling these third-party providers doesn't, you don't have control over what is happening under the hood anymore, because you really don't know what data they are using to train these models, right? At some point, even the open source ones stopped publishing and telling us anything happening. So it's really all black box, right? So this is where you have to then think of control what you can, and infrastructure as well. We've had a fair share of experience with infrastructure, but you have to think about what's the architecture that's going to help you grow in volume and velocity. And we have feedback loops, continuously monitoring, continuously checking, with feedback you get from the system. So this is one example, if you'd ask me, and there's so many out there as well. But this is an example of the price enterprises will pay for poor data foundations, right? So Air Canada, maybe not a lot of money, but they were ordered to pay a customer who was misled by their chatbots. And they argued that, well, it's AI, not us. It's the AI. So that's also that factor of accountability. Who's going to be accountable when AI goes rogue, right? But they argue that that's AI, that's not us. Again, imagine they had the strong data foundations before that chatbot gave a reply. There was something behind the scene that they put in place to make sure that the whatever answers going out there is really, it reflects their brand, it reflects their business. So these are some of the things that we should also be considering. So we talk about data strategy. There's really no AI strategy without a data strategy, right? So if you're thinking about AI strategy, you also need to consider data strategy, regardless of where the AI is hosted. And this gives a good breakdown of what that AI readiness framework will look like. There's the fact now that AI models are democratized. So really anyone, when you think about, I don't have to collect all that data to start benefiting from these models. Yes, that's true. But again, there's also that factor of, is it well grounded in your business brand? Is it well grounded in your values as a business? So we have that organizational readiness, even the aspect of literacy, and literacy cuts across understanding what these models can and can't do, their capabilities, their limitations, and really creating that awareness around their safety as well. There is ethics and governance readiness, AI risk control. In fact, that's a big factor right now, risk control, because we have a lot going on around risk as well. Business value readiness, data, but there's data readiness, and that's what we're going to be focusing more on. So I tried to map what that data maturity level would look like for GenAI. I know we have normal, maybe data maturity just for AI in general, but if you think and narrow it down to GenAI, this is how, sometimes you see organizations going this route, starting from the foundations, prompt engineering, like anyone can just prompt the GenAI tools and get something back. but sometimes it's a bit hacky because at that stage, they're still they're not even really focusing on data. They're just getting some prompt templates here and there and trying to test which prompt at least gives them a good response. There's accuracy stage where you think about, okay, so it seems that there's the fact that this is not very reliable, the outputs, because it's a bit, probabilistic, it's not fixed, it's not like calculator where you always get 2 times 2 equals 4. So we have to put in some measures to make it more accurate. And there is the expert level, where you're beginning to fine-tune the model. You're beginning to collect your own data, your proprietary data, and fine-tune on that proprietary data. And you get to level 4, which is optimization. At this point, you are beginning to combine resources, fine-tune data sets, so many orchestration going on. And then where organizations want to get to at the highest level will be that differentiation. And if you consider it, and everybody has access to AI tools now, what is going to make one organization different from the other? This is where the differentiation comes in, where regardless of what happens, regardless of the tools that come out in the market, you have your own kind of GenAI is differentiated, and it's fully embedded as well into your core workflows and products. So what part of this exercise is really thinking about the opportunities. So this is something that we do as a team as well. So we look at what are the possible opportunities out there. Sometimes the best opportunities are the ones that really would start adding value. They're high value ones, and it's easy to get started while thinking of the roadmap around making it much more differentiated. So we'll say here that some of the best use cases are the ones that really add value to customer, even within their current workflow. And I'll give you a practical instance. So this is the tool that we built at Redgate, which already the tool have been existing, right? Customers want to anonymize the PII in their data, but then for them to enter like a custom data set that is not part of the inbuilt data set, they would have to, let's say, imagine you had to enter 100 Swedish names or 100 German names manually, right? So how do you go about that? You might want to just go use ChatGPT to do that, or just manually type that in. So these are some examples of how you can bring in value with GenAI from current workflows. So what we just did, yes, so this was a feature. They can then create a data set with AI and just plug it in. They don't have to leave the platform. I'll give you another example. So this one is a tool that I already use this tool. I don't know if anyone recognizes this tool, more for the research-oriented people. So this is Overleaf. So I already use this tool. And then when I saw they have this, I'm like, ooh, this is really good. This is like my co-pilot now, because they can suggest a fix. Because I usually have problem writing in LaTeX at times, because there's some errors. You have to go looking on some Stack Overflows or somewhere to find a fix for it. But then the fact that they're giving me this value within my workflow, that's immediately valuable for me as a customer. And so we're going to then look at what does data preparation look like for GenAI to help build that solid data foundation. And this is typical workflow you would have. Let's say you have a user, sends a request, gets a response. So we broke this into steps. A user sends a query. That user, imagine it was a customer support assistant. So what they would need is they want to get answers to something, to help support the customer. So we see that in customer service, for example. Maybe there are lots and lots of calls that have been held in the past, and this is all saved within the knowledge base of the organization. So when they send a query, within that you have a prompt and context manager that processes that query to extract meaning from it. And then it goes on to, the searching for relevant information. So this is the part where all this is within the organization. they have some knowledge management, right? Some of them could be public data, some of them could be proprietary data, but they then have to think about bringing all that in. Sometimes even LLM can help, like with creating the embeddings and all that, like just transforming that data into much more meaningful space, because the LLMs really don't understand text. What they understand is numbers. And then, this would retrieve some relevant information, and that relevant information augments the user prompt. And that comes back to them with a response that is well grounded in the company's values and their proprietary database. So it's not LLM just giving you random solution, but this is solution based on this is what the business does. This is the business knowledge base. And that you can't take away from the business, because the data they've got is their assets. So the earlier they start to leverage it, the better. So if you think about RAG, have you heard of RAG? RAG, not RAG, like so it's retrieval augmented generation. Retrieval augmented generation. So just think about what we just saw here is exactly what RAG does. Retrieving information and augmenting it. So it retrieves that information and then augments it. So the LLM can then answer using the context of what it has as information, as a reference point. So it's just like a simple workflow. You have data, that the data is divided into some smaller parts, then it's provided as a context to the LLM, and the LLM gives an output. So as a similar pipeline here, and what the user just knows is I have a query, I just ask you a question and I get my answer. But under the hood, all that data pipeline, some of us are, you're already familiar with ETL, extract, transform, and load. So it's a similar concept around how to then extract this information and how to pull in the context that it has from the company's database and give it as a context to the LLM to give an answer. And the demo I'm going to be showing you, this is the architecture for that demo. So this was done with AWS, and pretty much is the same thing. So you have maybe a user interface. I'm going to be using Streamlit because it's quite easy to set up the demo with a Streamlit. So you've got a user interface, and the user has a query, and that query goes to the knowledge base. So I use the AWS knowledge base. And within that knowledge base, already there is a knowledge base ingestion pipeline that has got, so all of this, what you can see, this arrow, ticker arrow, just shows you this is just a simple pipeline. Query, retrieve context, response, query, retrieve context, response. But behind the scene, what is really happening is that whenever data is uploaded, so AWS has got an S3 bucket for storage. So you upload new documents or data, and what it does is to sync those documents and do all the parsing, chunking. These are things that need to be done. Imagine you have like loads of maybe financial documents that the organization has, or customer service queries and answers. Some of us maybe that you're working in public sector. I worked a bit in public sector consulting, and you have teams that do bid. How much time have I got? Yes. Okay, I've got a watch here. Sorry. Time? Okay, all right. Yeah. So you have maybe PDFs. So like I said, I worked in public sector consulting, and there was like this process of writing bids, and you're always going to respond to the government or tenders that come in. And what we see is that each time, like new ones come, maybe the expert who wrote the previous one had already maybe left the business. So you're going to really start from scratch to write it. And sometimes this takes you a week or even 2 weeks to prepare these proposals, right? So then imagine that all those documents from previous experts who had written it, from previous bid writers and all have been put into a knowledge base. And each time you have a new requirement coming from, the calls and the open proposals, you would just go use something of this nature, the knowledge base. Go into that knowledge base, and the LLM helps you respond based on the context. So that's going to save you a lot of time than having to always do it from scratch, always write those bits from scratch. So that's where the knowledge base becomes helpful. And as long as a business has some data that is their assets, they already have a knowledge base. They just have to think of, how do I leverage it? How do I prepare it for the LLM? Because the preparation is really important, right? Otherwise, if the data is not of good quality as well, it won't perform as well. So we're going to see what that looks like. I've learned the hard way not to do live demos, sorry, especially in an evening like this. It's not going to work, so I just recorded it. So this is what it looks like. You have a set of documents, and I just use very simple documents, but these are text files, and it could be as many pages as possible. So that's really the value in having some kind of a retrieval system. So all these files can be stored within the S3, AWS S3 bucket, or whatever storage you have. So you have I've just used 3 documents for the demo, and so that's the knowledge base documents that it pulls in. Just going to ask it question based on what we have within that knowledge base. What language does AWS Lambda support? And what it would do is it will search the knowledge base and give me answers and tell me as well where that is coming from. Okay. So that is pretty much easy. And if you look through here, it tells you what sources are available as well. So that's an important thing with retrieval augmented generation, ability to also know where it's citing the document from. And you can also use that to measure. Some people think, okay, how do I evaluate this? How do I measure whether the RAG is good enough or not? So there also needs to be some evaluation, but we'll get to that. So I can ask it another question. I know that I picked this up from the document. I'm just going to say build to dash and dash, and it's still going to search and gives me the answer based on here. You are trying to guarantee that it's not just making something up, because maybe your knowledge base might be more up to date than what has been used to train the LLM, which you really don't even know. You don't know what has been used to train it, the large language models that you're using. So I'm going to ask you this one, how is the weather? And it's going to tell me, I can't answer your question based on the provided context. And it's telling me that the context contains technical documentation about AWS services. So that is also a way to make sure that it's not answering outside context. So what happened to Air Canada, where it's saying something that is outside what the business does, giving advice that way, does not happen. Okay. So one of the other things you can check as well is, so it has some, it's scoring. You can score. You can understand how confident it is with its citation as well. So evaluation is important. And I've added the scoring. So you could see that it scores the different documents it has retrieved and can tell you, okay, so here it picks the one that is the highest, right? And here you can then evaluate, why is the score, why is it not maybe above? You could set a threshold in its confidence as well. This is something you can control, and you can see that under the hood with the AWS API. You can also try to, so what it really does is, whatever a response, it tells you, this is how confident I am in what I have retrieved and where I've retrieved it from. So here I'm just using the maximum, the maximum value, the maximum score, but this is where you can begin to explore create thresholds and all. Okay.
What was that question you asked? The last question you asked.
The last one. Oh, where is that question? The one I think I asked it, how many nines are in, yeah, count of nines. Yes. Is it this one? Oh no, this one. Yeah, there's one I asked it how many nines are in the reliability has got like 11 nines. So I think it went and pulled, yeah, it pulled that information from there. Okay, what kind of fault tolerance does AWS have? So yeah, pretty much it just works using the knowledge bases. Then the other one, how many nines reliability? So you can ask it and it pulls the information. But I also wanted to show us from the API the kind of, if you wanted to debug a response, you could debug the response to see what exactly you have in the raw responses. So you can check that as well. Yeah, okay. So here, for example, you can see, the context. So it's sending the context to the model. You can see the context it sends to the model, the information it processes, and the score. So this is something that you can output, and that's all coming from the S3 buckets where the storage is from the architecture that I showed to you. So you could really explore and see what's happening under the hood, and it's using the Claude Sonnet model for this. So this is just like a really simple example, but again, you can build this already could be relevant in itself before you start adding more complexities to the architecture. Okay, so there are definitely data preparation challenges, like the volume and velocity, multimodal integration. Maybe you might want to integrate text, you might want to integrate videos and some other kinds of data. And sometimes you might want to label, provide some training labels and fine-tune the model. So that is, those are some of the challenges you're going to consider. Data governance, quick thing I wanted to say about data governance is some organizations, one of the difficulties they face is really with governance. And that is something to also think about while creating these GenAI solutions. So I'm going to just move to data infrastructure because this is also very, very important. You have to consider things like, where do I want to host the model? And this is also a challenge, even what we face in development, because you think of, do I want to host it locally or do I want it to be external? Each of them would have their pros and cons. So imagine hosting a very large, the large language models locally, or maybe even if it's a small language model, but the compute resources needed, you have to consider all that. But again, some customers might prefer it because some customers really don't want their data in some way to leave their network. But then the value of externally hosted one is that you don't have to think about those complexities of bringing that model in and training it locally. Then you have to also think about the client side or the server side processing, for example. So you could have a simple setup is that you have your UI and you put your prompt in and you get a response. But the challenge is that your user could change the prompt. So in the GenAI world, you have like prompt engineering where you have two kinds of prompts. The system prompt that controls how the system acts. So any AI tool you're using today has some system prompt, which you probably don't see, right? Because that's what controls how it behaves. So for example, what we built for synthetic data generation, for the system prompt, we're telling it act like a data generator, but the user doesn't see that when it is on the server side, because we can control all of that from the server side. But if you put that within the client side, it means that the user could change it from being a synthetic data generator to anything really they want. And that means they could just really control the system outside what you intended it for. So it's also important to think about that setup. And this is where like some of the challenges might come. How do you then build something more reliable that you could control outside of your client's environment? And then feedback loop is also very important. So this, I worked quite a great deal on this because we thought it was also important to understand and monitor these models and evaluate these models. So there are certain ways you can go about this, or because I love research and like to think of, okay, what's the hypothesis? What is, we don't just like put a model in production without knowing how it works. And without knowing, there's certain decisions you want to make, you want to first evaluate. So you can have set up different workflows and actually test, have a baseline and test that this approach, retrieval augmented generation or whatever approach for the data foundations is better than what you have as a baseline. So these are sort of the experiments that we ran. And with your evaluation, you really have two phases, right? You have when it's in development and when it's in production. So you have to think about both. In development, you have to think about what model do I use? So when we started out building this tool, I remember, okay, let's just use any model that's available, but you need to justify those choices. That's why I was talking earlier about what you can control and what you can control. So what models do you choose? What kind of prompts? Because think of it as well, the prompt is also your data assets, right? Because if you use I remember trying two different models, same prompt, and what the first model I used, or the second model when I got to using AWS, because I went from Azure to AWS, and one of the AWS models, it was really outputting them. I gave it examples of data sets. And what it did, it just took that example and brought it back to the user. Like, no, I didn't want you to give the user the example. I just gave it as an example so you can generate new data sets for me. So I just realized that no, that model wouldn't work for this use case. But I wouldn't know that if I wasn't doing some tests. So you have to think about your test pipeline as well, test cases, and that's really some work on its own. This is a good example of a test case that I worked on, where these are things that help decide what's the best model for this use case. But you'd have built out your use case, which could be a combination of human-generated use case. Like, of course, you need to have a human in the loop to make sure that that use case is really relevant. And also sometimes you could use machine-generated test cases with a human. So there is a new direction called large language model as a judge, which is how models would judge other models and all that. But that's a whole field on its own. So at the end, yeah, you have these metrics that are helping you assess the model. And this is something that you need to think about continuously as well, monitoring your model. So really, that's where I'm going to conclude, taking us back to thinking about solid data foundations. You can see that, yes, we're in a world where AI is democratized, AI is in the hands of everyone, and some companies are thinking, what's really my competitive advantage? And data could still be your competitive advantage. I'm going to stop here and take questions.
In terms of cost,
yeah.
If we had to do something yourself, and either use Azure or AWS, for the background and all, what sort of cost are you looking at?
Oh, don't ask me about cost. Anyway, so let me give you an example. So for this sort of application, funny enough, it's not really very expensive because cost is based on tokens as well. So different factors are going to affect cost. Now, if you are thinking about grounding your large language model with your proprietary data, that's going to have its associated costs. So the application I showed you wasn't even using RAG, right? It was just because it's synthetic data. All the user needed to do was put a very short prompt you could control that as well. You control the window of information that can be given to the LLM as an input token. So that's something you can set within your UI design, right? So you can control that. So the user doesn't ask it, like putting one PDF document, asking it to create data set. That doesn't make sense for application, right? So it really varies. It can depend on, what your application is. And if you're also adding some context to the LLM, anything you're putting to the LLM would have its cost, and anything it brings back as well. So the cost is both input and both sides. So, but then for this sort of application, it's really cheap. Maybe in a month, you might not even get up to $100 a month. Yeah.
So that's why sometimes when you online you use these AI models, it says, well, we got a certain amount of tokens.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing you have to consider, for example, if you're considering building some kind of LLM, like I showed you some examples of value add LLMs within the user workflow. You're not really thinking of building something outside your workflow. You have an existing workflow. A good example is, I don't know how many of us use this. I used Excel, and Excel had analyze data feature, right? So that's within the workflow, and it just looks at the data that is already within its environment. So these are some good examples of AI that you already have an existing solution, and how do I make the user's life easier within the workflow? So for such, you have to think about what data you're going to be feeding into the LLM, and put some controls in, because it's either the charge model would be just keep charging them the way you've charged them, but again, or maybe you have to develop a new costing model. And GenAI now is making a lot of businesses rethink their costing model. Should I go on costing them the way I have been costing them, but then I need to put enough guardrails to control the cost so it doesn't go up? Or do I put some limits, maybe set limits? So some organizations maybe have set up things like spending limits, but that comes with its own architectural. You have to rethink the infrastructure as well. Because if you're going to be tracking every user by the costs, then you have to rethink your architecture and your infrastructure. Yeah.
That's it. That's very
Okay. Yep.
Where you see if it plays.
Testing, 1, 2, testing.
Yeah.
Because it's like the computer, quite hot, so I think it's quite
Yeah, I went back to
next session will be starting in a minute or so. If you'd like to take your seats.
Wait a while.
Hello. How long have I got? How many? I can go less, you know. Evening. My name's Simon Devine. I'm from Hopton. We're on the 11th floor here, and we focus on Power BI, Fabric, machine learning, AI, obviously, because everyone does AI now. And what we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes, Sheb has said, but I promise you I'll get it way under that, is user experience principles for Power BI. So why are we looking at this? So because of the work that we do, we see an awful lot of reports that people have written themselves, and for the most part, they are truly awful. And we're going to show you one of those in a bit as well. And one of the things that we often find is we get involved and invited to these things because there's no adoption, they're not being used, they're difficult to get to grips with. They just feel off, and right, but they feel off. By the way, I've put the heating up as well, so it's going to get to about 23 degrees. So you should fall asleep. So what we're going to do in this session, which I thought was a great idea until I spoke with Sheb about it, and he's like, really? And now I'm thinking it's a terrible idea, is we're going to look at a Power BI report that we've written that's made up, that is demo data through and through, that's not very good. And as a collective, this is the way that I can avoid actually doing anything. As a collective, we're going to talk about what's bad with it. Then we're going to come up with ideas. And then this is the stupid idea. I'm going to build a good one on the fly. So this will be fun. We do want people to come up with ideas and suggest things. And so everybody who suggests will win a prize. Yeah, it's chocolate in it, so just bear that in mind. It'll be one per person, so if you've got multiple children, pick the one with the best prospects. So what we're going to cover, we've got a demo data set, Furt and Frost, with it being at the Christmas meeting. We're going to look at some core principles, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to look at the bad Power BI report. We'll make one up on the fly. And then what we'll do is you will, at the end of this deck, there'll be a link to connect to Bryn, who's my lovely assistant this evening. Bryn, if you connect to him on LinkedIn, he will then message you on LinkedIn with the takeaway deck where you can find links and other things that are useful. So, made up data, Fur and Frost, seasonal retailer, wholesaler. We've got around 2 years worth of data, 350,000 rows in here. It's not massive, but it'll do. And they're interested in sales by region, channel, category, salesperson, customer. And when you see it, I hope you will agree. If you don't, apologies if this is like yours. It's got issues, we think. So why does this stuff feel hard or seem hard? Why do so many people come up with reports that sort of look like this? And I think in part it's a desire to put things on a page, get stuff there. It's important to see things. So they fill it. They literally fill pages, and I've got this written down. I couldn't remember its name. Miller's Law. People can hold 7 pieces of information at any one time. Anymore, it's just wasted. And so one of the things that for us is key is just strip it down if we can. Inconsistent colours, typography. I'll show you some neat tricks of how we can deal with that. Filters all over the place, so they're not entirely sure what to press. Just press any button and see what happens. And no question as to what a page is trying to answer. Again, just to warn you, I'm coming into this session with no plan for the 3 pages that we'll build together. So for your fantastic chocolates, you'll be working for this. Okay. So some of the things that we'll talk about, and we'll see it in practice, is the visual hierarchy. If it's a dashboard, we start at the top left, we go across, then we go down, and then we go across again. If it's tables of information, a table, a matrix, then the F principle works. We go across the top, we go down, halfway down, we go across, to try and make it so it follows that sort of pattern. White space isn't a bad thing. If we've got it there, we can keep it. Group things together that are relevant, have colours that work together. They do have meaning. Progressive disclosure is something that I'm super keen on, especially as we get more and more information. It's not overly relevant, certainly not to the data set that we're talking about, but the principle there is, and I can show an example if this goes all horribly wrong. Principle there is we start off with key pieces of information, your top level KPIs, maybe a table if we've got nothing else to put there, and then we drill down and we drill down. We don't give everything straight off the bat. We see something, we drill into it, That's useful, especially if the data is huge, because one of the benefits of progressive disclosure is when you see something first, you've got a second, half a second before people go, this is slow. If they then have to drill into something, they expect the system to have to go away and churn. So there's an expectation that there's a little bit of a delay. So progressive disclosure is a fantastic way of not having to spend any more money on fabric, for example, because they're expecting a little bit of delay as they go down in the data set. And perceived performance. We want to see things that's quick. We don't want to see things that is slow. We want to catch their attention. So this is a fantastic story. It is true. I learned a little while back, which is in the 50s in New York, people, obviously buildings were getting taller, lifts weren't improving, they were slow. So people were complaining about the speed of lifts. So they were like, well, we could replace the mechanisms and make the lifts quicker. And they said, well, we don't need to do that. We'll put mirrors in the lifts and we'll give people something to look at, namely themselves. And so that's one of the reasons. Obviously, there's claustrophobia as well. But the main reason why there are mirrors in lifts is so people can stare at themselves, basically. As soon as you do that, the fact the lifts are slow, it's no longer a problem. And if you want proof of that, take these lifts. It takes 20 seconds to go to the 11th floor, which we are, and it is slow. But that's one of the things with this. So you put things on a screen that catch the eye, that keep people busy. They're going to use it, which is really important.
And probably have makeup in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. Color and text equally important. So one of the things that drives me mentally is different sign themselves, color for the sake of it. And what we want, and I'm not doing this today, I know I should, but I'm not, thinking about low vision or color blindness. I'll show you a little tool that we use as well for that. And then finally, I know slicers were fantastic 15, 20 years ago, but they're really not now. Have them if you've got to have them. They do add value, but keep them somewhere that people expect there to be a slicer. Don't have cross highlighting going on. Use buttons to navigate and drill through them, and that's that progressive disclosure. Right, That's Bryn. So if you want a copy of this, that's his LinkedIn. Say hello. I can always put that back. So let us jump in to the beer. Right. So thank you. It took us ages to build this bad boy. So we had to put one of them on. And in all seriousness, we see this, and we're not saying it's in, we're not trying to be insulting to it. We do see this, and I'm sure it does have some value, but I'm not sure what. So what we'll do is we will start and play a little bit of what could be improved, and then we will start to improve it. Any takers for the chocolate? Oh, come on, look. Go on. Yes. Yeah, so you've no idea what that actually means. This easy, guys. Anyone else? Yes, it has. Yeah. I'm highlighting one for me straight off. Yep.
There are too many categories on the label on the bar chart.
Yes. Spot on.
KPIs are a bit on 2 different levels.
So, yeah.
The colors of the pie chart is more vibrant ones.
Yeah.
The numbers are also
Perfect. Yes, sir.
The time series chart, you should be categorizing it monthly. There are too many data.
There are indeed. Yes.
So you're understanding what the purpose of this page is, and home doesn't really help either.
Does not.
Christmas.
Yeah.
No proper filters.
Yep.
There is too many labels.
Yeah.
These slides are too many. I think they're one person and about 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Mentioned something earlier, and the lady there. I don't know. Yeah. Shauna. Thank you. That's why I was doing it. These truly get on my nerves. I know they add value, but they can add value. Anything, anyone else before I move on to the next? But you'll see this plenty, right? Do not use. Don't show it, especially if there's no data there. Yep. Brace yourself. Any more? Shall I go? We've got a menu here and a menu here. Make a decision. We've got filters here and filters here. Make a decision. It's one or the other. This, which is okay. This line chart, I couldn't even tell you what that is. There are 350,000 rows of data. I can understand why you have 100% and 43.4%, but really, what is it telling anybody? That I get on my nerves, wrapping of the title. Don't do it. I get why that's there, but should they not show revenue? That is, but I can't read any of the numbers, and that's This is where my teeth start to itch. That's different styling from the other page. That you could get rid of the legend and replace that on those numbers. We're doing well. This is the finished one. It is not. Other things actually is this, where they're not using layering properly to maintain order layer. It's an easy mistake to miss, but it should be one that's done. So there's a load of different things that we could probably do to this. Did anybody not get some chocolate who wants some chocolate before we go?
No.
So just before we go on, just sort of some of the ways that we would look to use this. You'll have seen this before because it's like the standard one that I wheel out, but it's useful nonetheless. And this will help show some of the styles, some of the things that you can adopt. So one is having it simple. So we talked about key metrics and not overdoing it. Then we've got 4 KPIs, sexy visual, that's of no real use in actual business circumstance, but it looks fantastic. We've got buttons to hide and show things, which is good. We talked about that drill down, sort of progressive disclosure. So I'm starting here, I can see if I click on that, then I click a button, and then I get into the details. So we're not bombarding users with things. And then equally, we were talking with a prospect earlier on today, actually, at fabric capacity. We can do that. This is absolutely not AI. You'll have used this, no doubt, the ability to make it say something useful. We can give the impression that we're starting down that journey without actually starting down that journey. And we think these sort of things is where it becomes useful. Again, we've got progressive disclosure, sorts of methods of delivering information we think are really useful. All right then. So here's gonna be fun. So let's go into it. So I've cheated because I've probably got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 10. It's simple view. I'll show you it on here so we can maybe see how it actually looks with those gone. So try to simplify it. We wouldn't do this. It was just so we've got it there. So we've got menu structure down the side. First thing to do is categorize. If anyone doesn't like it, honestly, do say. I'll be upset, but I won't be offended. So category and subcategory, allow them to appear like that. Maybe use the chevron rather than the plus, so it looks a bit different and it doesn't look like Power BI. That's one of the things that we try and do. Stop it looking like something that someone from school has made. I know I'll come on to that. And this sort of thing, so rounded is the in thing. Try and make it look pretty. Have the buttons in the top corner if that's where you want them for different pages. And then have, if you've got a support link, include that. If you've got a user manual, include that to try and make it nice and clear. So how to use a tool called an AI agent. Let me see if this one works. So we called it Hue, which if you're interested in color, you'll find hilarious. And if you're not, the principle there is that goes away. We've taught it what we expect it to do. We've said our primary color is this, and eventually it will come back and say, here's a color to use, here's the accent, here's the other colors, use this background, use that, and then it'll say, oh, apologies, in the background using the color. Now, in fairness, I've said using the color, and it might think that's the background. So we'll get a truly awful JSON out of it. But the principle is looking to tools like this now to help us out. Any questions before we move on? Oh, it works. Thank the Lord. So that goes away and says, here's your primary, we've got it in there. And that'll build that for me. It says it's this. And then if I want, I can get the JSON file out, or I can say, make it warm, make it bold, and it'll update those colors for us as well. So that's a neat way of using AI, probably one of the best ways of AI that we do anyway inside Hopton. That's one of the neat ways of using AI to actually come up with a color scheme that's going to be useful for you. And I'm not going to use that live in case the colors are truly awful. But cool. That's using an agent within Copilot. If you're desperately interested, I can give you the prompts that we provided it so that it came up with it. But it's pretty. Oh, one of the other things. The original example here didn't have measures. It was just literally using content, just summing fields. So we got rid of them. And obviously, as part of this, what we do is we delete columns. So it moves up to the top for Lightning. And all we do there is we've just written the script, C# script with the measures, import them, and we're away. So, what shall this first page do then? I did say you were unwilling participants. Any ideas what you want to show on our sales homepage for this? Or shall I just do it and you can sit there quietly?
Could we get a breakdown across them?
Cool. Yeah. So this is unfortunate. So let's just do simple. Sorry, yes. And now I'm ignoring you, but I'm not ignoring you. So one of the things that we do straight away is if we wanted KPIs at the top, we'd copy them. We deal with the alignment. We try and make sure everything is. We don't try. We make sure everything is aligned. We want them to be gaps, so we use the snap feature. This is a low resolution screen, so it's going to look a bit dodgy, but there we go, we can do it. If we're using a menu structure or a filter structure down the side, we make sure it's there forever. We build out what we want. We try and, I think it's fair to say, we try and make it so individual charts have something to say, and we'll have a title and then a subtitle as well. So there we could say, revenue, but we could add a subtitle by month and year. Okay. And then what we'd probably, so this is a personal preference, but I don't know if I'll stick with it. These sort of charts work well for smoothing. I don't know if anyone disagrees with me. If you do, tell me. So we do that, and what we probably do is have a real tooltip there, as in a separate page that pops up and tells you more, rather than that. But time is what it is. So that we should probably have that as. This is going to be fun. Let's see what we've got to play with, eh? So we'll put total revenue there. Again, yeah, okay, I've not done a fantastic job there. Let's just change that. We and I'm assuming everyone does use measures rather than just some calculations. But then at least you can format it properly. So if we've got revenue there, we will have profit there. Also formatted. And we will put, does anyone want to tell me what I could have done and hasn't done particularly well?
Could it be useful to approximate the numbers or they, because this will get it down to how they want to see the information.
Yeah, so you mean what, round these up so it just says
Weirdly, I disagree with that.
I do.
I've got in trouble with that before, versus when you look at the dashboard, it has rounded numbers on. So I had to put the pennies on, despite it being later pounds. And it actually displays like trust, and it makes it more trustworthy.
So we see that a lot actually, where people round up and it says 4 million. Brilliant. You're never actually going to see things change for 1 million potentially. So we always say drop the pence if you can, but unless it's a table perhaps, but round it up to thousands, because I think it's ridiculous when it says 12,172k. Just call it. Come on, guys. So that's the sort of thing we could do. Other things we could do if we had time is bring in the target and put the target against it, and then perhaps as the icon to say it's up or it's down, and we do that regularly. I just have no intention of doing that tonight. And yeah, okay, average margin of 0 is not fantastic, but keep the key things there. And just as we're talking that Z pattern, you're going to look at this, you're going to see some information, then you're going to come here. That style is pretty important to us. So what did you want to put on here? What we're going to put on? Making it easy?
Breakdown across something.
Brilliant, I can do that. So again, we don't try reasonably simple, we don't want them to be overly difficult. So I just copy and paste something if we've got it. So what sort of chart do you want to use?
I like a bar chart.
Good. Let's do that. So we could do terrible. So again, what we'd look to do is give that a name. The other thing we might be able to do, if we had time, is use as a line, so you can see where the target is. That'd be really neat in the middle of it. You give it a title, we move on. You don't have to use the color. So in the same way that the example that Hugh, bless him, came up with a color scheme, we use that. The color scheme we're looking at here, if I go back to Hugh, so the sort of questions we can ask it are extract colors from a logo, create a palette for a dark background, anything you want really. So we use this to say generate some cool colors, and away it goes, or he goes, whatever. Good. And then yeah, I mean, I'm sort of, I thought so you design it really, but the point is we always follow this set format. Now you're going to say that he said I had 5 minutes more, but I'm not going to carry on. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
for example, on that bar chart, you could put data labels on the bar so that it has a number, as opposed to having to use a whole load of it. So having the information in front of them and users moving around the page to find the information. I found that some customers don't know Power BI. They know that they want Power BI reports. They know that Power BI is a thing and that they should be using it. They don't really know what it does and the benefits are built for people moving around the page. So how do you manage that? Is that in the handover process and showing them what's possible, or would you just give them the information?
So for me, I think it comes back to how do they want to use it? Talk me through your use and and I think everybody here will do that. How do you use it? What do you want to see? But often users will say, oh, there's that table, that's fantastic. And then they say, oh, and then what I do is I export that into Excel. Okay, great, and your heart sinks now. It's like, why? And then they say, and then I get some other piece of data, and I do tackle that. Is say, don't tell us what you want, tell us what you end up with. Tell us what you do with this when you get it. So that's a good example. Sales manager, they're going to go in, and all they want to know is they've hit 5.3 million. And 19 deals they can see that is done, and that's one of the ways that we try and do it, is make it so we get to where the end result is and deliver that. And then they've still got the detail, right? Then if they want to say, okay, show me my weighted average, show me how with predictive analytics, so we can say how confident are we in the deals. That we can all do, but the first thing that they're going to see is something that's relevant to them. I think that's a really important thing.
Is that bit done using the smart narration, or is it?
It's not
a measure.
It's a measure,
yeah.
And it's using Enlightened Data Story.
Okay.
It's been there for 5 years, and it's just brilliant.
I've done some similar titles of charts and stuff.
Yeah.
Quite cool.
Yeah. I mean, the measure isn't complex. It literally has the word so far this year, and then we'll use measures to say is up or is down or whatever we want to do. But I mentioned this earlier. It gives the impression that we're using AI almost. We'll look at that. That's AI. That's a tick. Maths. Did you have another? Or was that? Go on then.
I don't want to take over and follow through my questions. Not about me. The other question is, so I have an example where a customer wanted 6, 7 slides on the page because they want to be able to filter by all those things, and that is their request, and they're not really on that. The chart I built is a chart. It is rows and rows of data. In my opinion, it's not a Power BI report, but that's what they've asked for, and that's what I have. It's actually not a Power BI report.
Well, so I think, in fairness, there's 6. Well, actually, there's 7 and 8 there if you think about it, because there's hierarchies in there. So there's 8 slices there. So you can do it without it looking horrendous. I think one of the things that we try and do is say, look, we'll give you this, but then all that detail is there. You just have to hit that button. So it's a great big table in the center. Fantastic. Ultimately, we can offer advice, but that's all we can do.
I think the problem is in building the report. If they are asking for multiple filters, then it should be 2 pages instead of 1 page.
Perhaps, yeah.
They want a different content.
Yeah, let's push out. Yeah. Yes, sir.
At the risk of massively different,
No.
is, fundamental We can talk about rules for UX, etc. What we're really talking about, right, is client management, stakeholder engagement. From UX, you know, part of why it's difficult to say, oh, well, this is what we've done to pages. What's the user story? You know, what is it you get? But you talk about the hiring the numbers, right? Because it's like, if you're talking to investors and you're at a certain cap, then absolutely you should be running maybe to the local million.
Yep.
And yeah, just sort of like widen that discussion to the group of, you know, fundamentally all this, similar sliders, you know, whatever it is, fundamentally what it is.
And one of the ways we do that is through this, which, being truthful, is on Amazon, but you're buying them from us. And these are dashboard wireframe kits. And the principle is you sit down with clients and say, what are you actually wanting? So not show me what you've got now, because if they wanted what they've got, is it that you want to deliver from a report, from your reports? And literally, they get these cards, they write on them, they build it out. And then one of the key things that, and we say, so imagine you're going into, you're switching your computer on, what is it that you want to see? What's going to make your day more useful, more productive? We get them to draw these out. We document everything that they say. And then one of the key things we do say is, just because you've asked for it doesn't mean you're going to get it. What we'll do is take the things that you want and look at how we can build that into a dashboard. So you're absolutely with clients and actually deliver what they need, not necessarily what they want. Not necessarily what they want.
Do you mostly focus on sort of end result, or so my own work it's always been sort of problem focused, like tell me your problem.
Yeah.
You know, not even what you want to see, just what are your pain points. And that's where our expertise comes in, is sort of saying, well, I've seen this problem before, you know, we probably have.
Exactly that. So when we start the day, so we did this recently with Premier Foods, who do loads of different things, including Angel Delight, if anyone can remember Angel Delight, it's still going. So we did this with them, and we said that, so imagine you starting your day, what is it that's going to allow you to achieve something? Not to achieve what you're there to do as a finance team or as a sales team. And that then becomes the topic. Or one of the things we need is margins to be this or that or the other. Fantastic, we'll do that with you. But you're right, one of the things I think we're really good at Hopton is we're not a bunch of out and out techies in the nicest possible way. We tackle this from what are you looking to deliver, and we'll help you and deliver it. And that makes all the difference, I think. Yeah. Anything else before I slide off and drink my beer? No? Did everyone get chocolate? That's the important thing. Bribery is still alive. If you want a copy of the sort of takeaways that we've got, including links, that's Bryn's LinkedIn profile. Click that, connect, say hello, just so he knows what you're why you're speaking to him, and we'll drop you that on Monday. Thank you. Oh, welcome.
So guys, there's some food at the back of the room. The left-hand side is purely vegetarian, so the 3 trays on the left are all vegetarian, and the right-hand side is mixed with other things as well. So please help yourselves, stay around for a bit of networking and chit-chat, and hopefully we'll be back next year with a whole load of new events lined up. Thank you very much.